black lights and Bruce burn when I record for Watts, and every black like Troy Davis who never had a fair shot.
Welcome to Left to Black. I'm your host, Mark Anthony Neal. We're here as usual here in the John Hope Franklin Center for Interdisciplinary International Studies, and we're happy to be joined today by Maimouna Youssef,
Thank you.
also known as Mumu Fresh. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you for taking some time to join us here in the Left to Black studio.
Thank you.
You are visiting dorm in Duke for a couple of days, performing also. So how's your visit been so far?
It's been great. We've been having a lot of really in-depth conversations, a lot of great questions. We're going to perform tomorrow. We've had some very great impromptu moments with some of our students. Yeah, it's been a great experience. You know, I enjoy doing these types of residencies.
Yeah. So you're from the DMV, born in Baltimore, raised in D.C.
You got it. You know me.
Yeah. What does DMV bring to the table, you know, for folks who don't quite know what that black Baltimore, black DC experience might be?
I mean, in terms of music, we've always had really great musicians, you know, between Baltimore and DC. I think artists find it a struggle to make it out of those cities, you know, in terms of, I guess, gaining a certain amount of notoriety while living in those cities. But we've always had, it's been an amazing melting pot full of talent, full of soul, full of, you know, jazz music. A lot of jazz greats come from those cities. And just culture. I mean, when I first moved to DC as a preteen, I would, you know, hit up the U Street corridor, bouncing around to all the different, I was probably 14, well, maybe by the time I was like 13 or 14, you know, they knew me well enough to let me slide in and get on the mic at all the different open mic spots and the jazz clubs. And the history is so rich, from your Duke Ellingtons, your Marvin Gayes, your Billie Holidays, like that history there is so rich. It's, it was a good, I got my chops up there.
Yeah,
it was a good place to, you know, get your chops up.
So I'm not telling you this because you're here in the studio with us, but my favorite root song is Don't Feel Right.
Oh, thank you.
So to be able to place a face,
wow,
you know, to what
that.
is that extraordinary voice.
Thank you.
But you're multifaceted, right? You know, folks are hearing you as an R&B singer, they're hearing you as a little bit of jazz. You know, you got some reggae tracks on your albums, and then of course you got bars. Which one do you feel most comfortable? You know, if we think about your different performance styles as a love language, right?
That's deep.
What's your love language?
Maybe soul music is. That's probably the most effortless. I don't think about it. Just come out. That's probably like my default setting.
Yeah.
But like, I'm very content driven. So no matter what genre or discipline I'm using to communicate my thoughts, it's always going to be about progressive content. You know, like that's one thing you won't see change. Like that'll be the consistent fiber and thread, no matter, you know, what I'm using to explain it. And I'm that's like my happy place, you know, feeling like myself and the audience, we're having this progressive conversation through music, you know, and people are leaving better than they came.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Who were you listening to when you were a kid?
Mostly my mother, you know, because I didn't have control over the radio. You know, you don't get to touch the radio until you get to be a certain age. So Nina Simone and Donny Hathaway, Eddie Jefferson, Hugh Masekela, Miriam Makeba, Angelique Kidjo, Fela Kuti, Bob Marley, the Wu-Tang Clan, Outkast, Lauryn Hill, Nas, Jay-Z, Tupac, Ice Cube, like that's kind of like, Public Enemy, Arrested Development, Sister Soldier, like those were the soundtracks that I heard, and that was between my mother, my father, and my oldest brother. Yeah. You know, they controlled what the soundtrack was, so that's what I grew up listening to.
Now, your mother is Choctaw.
She's Choctaw in Africa, yeah.
Talk about what it was, because even in your musical taste, you know, what I don't hear is a traditional African-American household.
Yeah. It's true.
I'm hearing a range of things.
Yeah.
And also not stuff that you necessarily are going to hear on the radio.
Yeah, very obscure, right?
Yeah.
And you know, my mom was very dominant in terms of what I could and couldn't listen to. Like some of the songs of my childhood, like your Totals and your Escapes and SWVs, you know, I couldn't even listen to that music. I had to listen to Sarah Vaughan, you know, and Nina Simone. Like she was like, start there. Like she wouldn't let me do runs, like vocal acrobatics when I was younger. She said, learn how to sing a straight note with passion and conviction before you go jumping around. You know what I mean? Because the story is in a straight note.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
those are like ad libs.
Right,
Those are like, you know, extra details.
Finishing touches.
Yeah. She said, and know when to add them at a place where it adds impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not the meat of the story. So, you know, it's funny, she still does this. When I'm singing, she'll sit in the audience and look at me. She still will like raise her hand for me to go up to a note and then like come down. And it's always so funny because I'm, Ma, I don't need you to do that anymore. Okay, I know what I'm doing. But as a kid, she would sit in the audience and conduct me of how to manipulate emotion, you know, through my voice. Yeah.
It sounds like both a wise and talented woman.
Oh yeah, my mom was a singer. She sang. She was Sammy Davis Jr.'s opening act.
Oh wow.
She was the lead singer of the Vashinettes. She was the original singer for Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band. She also sang with Brother Ah, with another group called Spellbound. They did like Crystal Bowl singing. So she's a first soprano. You know how they can be.
It's funny you mentioned the piece about the runs, because I always think about someone like Luther Vandross. And the thing about understanding Luther Vandross was that he knew how to finish a song, right? He could drop those runs at any time, but he would wait until minute number 5:30, right, to close the song, right? And actually sit there and make you wait and anticipate when it's going to happen. I mean, there's so many like these younger R&B cats, they start the runs in the first verse and it's like...
That's the same thing my mom says. I'll tell her like, oh Mom, I'll like go on Instagram, like, Mom, listen to this guy, he can sing so good. And I'll play and she says, not my taste. Far too many runs in the first 30 seconds.
It also sounds like your mom knew your talent very, very, very early.
She said she knew I could sing by the way I cried.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's funny because I can say the same thing about my son, even though I don't know that that's a path that he'll choose as a singer. But when the car door would open, he would be sitting in his car seat. And if, you know, the sound it makes, it's like, he would go, I was like, wow, his ear is really good. So I can relate to what she's saying about, she said my cry was melodious. I don't think my father agreed, though. It took him a while. You know, I was like almost grown before my father said, you know, you can really sing, girl. I was like, seriously, Daddy?
When I hear your story, and folks always have to ask, like, Mumu Fresh, where'd that come from?
Well, that's a name that Black Thought from the Roots gave me. I think the moment happened when I was touring with them, because I remember listening to their records and DJ Scratch being there. Then at one point, another beatboxer, his name is escaping me right now. I'll remember and tell you. But they used to have a beatboxer on stage, and so he wasn't there when I was there. So I would do my own little beatboxing impressions. You know, he'd laugh at me, and he would like, DJ Mumu Fresh. So I guess that's his impression of if I was like a DJ from the 80s or something, like that would be my name. And then I used it as a Instagram handle. And then when this clip I did on Tiny Desk went viral, like everybody just started calling me Mumu Fresh. So now I'm actually like having to go by Mumu Fresh now because I have this whole new fan base that like only knows me by Mumu Fresh.
Now, you did a lot of background singing, kind of laid low behind. And, you know, Tiny Desk has been like this incredible platform for so many folks, right, including yourself. What was life like after, particularly the second Tiny Desk? What was life after that for you?
Yeah, it happened really fast. Like my fan base increased dramatically, very quickly. My visibility, people being able to recognize me on the streets, that was weird for me. getting on a flight and the flight attendant freaking out when she read my ticket, my ticket, and it's like, oh my God, it's you. Can I touch you? It was like, oh, I guess. I think the most beautiful part about it is that the exposure came from me speaking about something that was very, very important to me and important to the times, relevant and also progressive and pertinent, and I think in a perspective that was uniquely my own, but still widely relatable. Like, that mattered to me because, you can become famous from doing anything. Yeah. Any old silly thing can get you fame. But to have it, for me to be living in my purpose and have the notoriety come from that was like the greatest blessing. Like, whoa, because people always tell you that it can't happen. They always say you got to sell out first to get on, or you got to do something that's not within your character, and then later on you can be yourself. Later on you can, stand up for what you believe in. Later on, though, don't do it too soon, And so it was a blessing for me to be able to just authentically stand in my truth and have people recognize that and appreciate it.
There are a lot of older movement types, folks who went through Black Power movement, Civil Rights movement. They will talk about how important it was to have anthems, to have songs that kind of captured the spirit of the movement, but also songs that everyday folks could find some value within their everyday life. And, folks are always wondering, is this Black Lives Matter moment going to have a song? And a bunch of artists tried to make songs that did that. With your song for Sandra Bland, it seems that it was so organic. Even in the way that even in the Tiny Desk performance, it was, you flipping it from your own perspective. Talk a little bit about the inspiration for that song.
Yeah, and I thought about that, about the fact that when tragedies happen, we get upset and we create from that anger. But the anger doesn't necessarily translate to the people that we want to really get the message.
Yeah, right.
So for me, it was important to go from a place of trying to get the person to empathize with it. Because I felt like, well, if I can get to your heart and to your core, to your humanity, maybe you can see the humanity in her. And that's why I put it in first person. So if you sing it, you have to put yourself in her shoes. And what if it were you? How would you feel? How would you want people to remember you? Because I felt like there was a lack of empathy about her life, I kept hearing people talk about, well, she shouldn't have been mouthing off to the police, or she shouldn't have been smoking a cigarette. Anything to justify her death.
And that's what folks that look like her as well as, what folks that look like her as well as,
and that really,
folks.
Really bothered me. You know what I'm saying? Like, having intellectual feedback, because she was correct about what her rights were. She was very well versed on the law. Some of her YouTube videos, she's constantly giving pointers on what to do if you're pulled over. She knows the law. So she knew her rights, and she was within her right, and she spoke on that. And people were acting like that was, death was a proper justification. Justification, like, and that bothered me. And so, but I had to ask myself, aside from my anger, if I really want to communicate with these people who do not get it, because we need allies, we need people to empathize. I have to find out how to get to the heart of them, to the feeling. And when people hear the song, they always say, man, that song made me cry. The song gave me goosebumps. Well, that's what I wanted. I wanted you to feel her. I didn't want you to just scroll past it again to, that's messed up, scroll. I want you to stop and say, ooh, that made me feel some type of way. I got to do something. I got to say something. I got to be a part of this. That's what I needed to happen. You know what I mean? To reverse the desensitization. Yeah. And that to me, that's the power of music, that it cuts through, gets to your soul, gets all in your emotions, gets you all in your feelings. It needs to, because that's the only way we're going to make a change, if people start to feel the connectedness in our humanity,
How important was it for you then to do the song on Black Girls Rock?
Oh my goodness.
Because, first of all, you come out on stage and it's just like stunning.
Thank
Right,
you.
before you open your mouth, it's like, oh, damn.
Thank you.
But what was it like to have that kind of platform, particularly given the message, that Beverly Bond has been trying to push around
Yeah.
Black Girls Rock?
First of all, I just admire Beverly Bond for the pioneer that she is, the activist that she is, and I mean, because I've been a good friend of Beverly Bond's for some time. I've spoken at her Black Girls Rock camp,
right.
and that's where the real work is happening.
Yeah,
The award
right,
show is
right.
what the people see afterwards,
Right,
but the real
right.
work happens with the mentorship with the young girls. I've performed as a part of her Black Girls Rock Festival in Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center. But to be able to honor the mothers of the movement with a song that I wrote, this offering, and Sandra Bland's mom reached out to me after I did the performance on the Tiny Desk. It's overwhelming, and
Wow.
it's affirming and confirming just about my purpose, about the song that was given to me, because I don't write about everything.
Yeah.
I don't. I honestly don't even, I'm not a person that writes every day. I write when the spirit is on me,
Yeah,
and that
right,
song
right.
sat on me, and
Right.
I could not write it, like it got all inside of my bones. I had I had to get it out in that way. And I workshopped the song for almost like a year before I
wow.
recorded it. I would perform different versions of it as I was trying to feel like, is this the right, does it feel how I want it to feel yet? Not yet, okay. But the intro, I wanted to be like a doo-wop.
Yeah.
Because my uncle, he was a doo-wop singer, and I just really like that era. For one, it is a homage, the doo-wop circles, you pouring out a little liquor to the ones who passed on.
Right,
that is already
that whole Cooley High moment, right?
yeah, you're honoring your ancestors already. So that
right.
sets it up. And then just those voices, I like resonance,
Yeah.
frequency,
Yeah.
I'm into that. So just starting with those voices. Dum, bum, bum, dum, dum, bum, bum, ba, dum, ba, dum, ba, dum, ba, yeah. My mother said, girl, you brought all of Chicago with you on that show, because my grandmother was a choir director before she converted to Islam, and before my mother converted to Islam, she was a choir director at the Baptist Church in Chicago. And when I would go stay with my grandmother in the summer, I grew up Muslim, so I never went to church.
Okay.
But when I would go to her house in the summertime, she would teach me all these gospel songs. And she would teach me Dr. Watts, like these old Negro spirituals. But we would she would teach me how to sing with my insides of my guts, you know what I mean? And how to communicate even without words, sometimes we would just
tell a story.
Yeah, we would just moan. We would tell a story in just moans.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring some of that into this story before I even tell you, before you get to say if you agree or not. Just feel me real quick,
What do you say to folks who will look at your body of work thus far and go, you're putting yourself in a box, right? If you want to reach a larger audience, right, you have to expand the range of stuff that you're singing about, the stories that you're telling. What do you say to folks, who say that?
Well, I feel like my body of work is really, really vast. I mean, even from my mixtapes, I've done all hip hop mixtapes where I flipped top 40 songs of Drake and Rihanna and Beyonce. I've done the blues, rock and roll, jazz, hip hop. I mean, I feel like there is no box. I feel like the range is so vast, and I do what I want. And I think that's the beauty of being independent, is that I get to experience myself and explore myself as an artist.
Yeah.
The box comes when someone else is telling you this is who you are and you can never be anything more than this. I have, every time I get into the studio, the opportunity to do absolutely whatever I want to do. And that's going to continue. I mean, I have 3 more albums that are waiting to come out. I have so much music recorded. And I try not to get in, I can't please everybody. I really try to follow the quote, those who have eyes to see will see, and those who have ears to hear will hear. If this is for you, then I'm speaking to you. If it's not, then that's all right too, And I just, no fear though.
Yeah.
I can't create from a place of fear. Anytime I have created based on what somebody else wanted to hear, or the marketplace, or with marketing in mind, or it's always been whack. It's always been whack. It's not sincere. It don't come out right. I can't stand behind it, But when I create just with the purpose in mind, the concept in mind, the feeling in mind, it always resonates with people in a very deep way. So I do my best never to create from a place of marketing.
Yeah.
You know, well, who, this is going to sell and how people are going to feel about this and that.
You're a single mom?
Yeah, you can say that.
What is the challenge of trying to be a working artist, touring, traveling, and also finding that balance between, you know, what you need to be as a mom?
It's so deep because people always ask me, is it hard? And I said, man, I've been doing it so long, I don't even ask myself, is it hard? I ask myself, is it possible? Because if it's possible, I'm going to do it. You know, if it's hard, such is life. Yeah, I wake up every day, I just try. You know, I try my best.
Yeah.
You know, I try to find the balance because not only am I a mother, you know, I homeschooled my son for 13 years. No, not 13, he hasn't been in school that long, but, you know, since he was in kindergarten. You know, I'm also a daughter, you know, who looks after my parents, you know.
Yeah.
I look after my community.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a lot that comes with it, but that's the road that I asked for, and I wouldn't trade it. You know, my son is my greatest creation.
I hear that.
And he makes me so proud every day. I love the person that he's becoming. And a lot of that is because he's been on tour with me so long. He's had experiences that other kids don't normally get to have. He's toured all over the world. He's had a lot of responsibility. I let him run my merchandise business, you know, and I believe that's going to prepare him for the future, you know.
Right.
He reads over my contracts before I sign them. He's been doing that since he was like 7,
That's
you know.
amazing. That is amazing.
It's important to me. So I get so much joy. It's hard for me to even look at it like it's hard. I mean, anything is hard. Everything is hard, you know. It's always a juggling act and a balance, and there are a lot of days I'm very, very tired, you know. But I'm also very, very grateful. I love this life, you know. I love not having no boss. That's, you know, I had to ask myself, like, what did you want out of this when you started out? What did you really want? And all I wanted was to not have no boss. I just didn't want nobody to tell me what to do. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, you know, travel with my son, have fun, go around the world, sing what I wanted to sing, and I'm doing exactly that. So I can't even be mad.
So I mentioned earlier that you got some bars. What does your top 5 look like?
Oh man, it's hard. We have this conversation in the car every time we on tour. Like everybody, that's the van conversation. What's your top 5? You know, I can't put it in an order. But I'm saying Andre 3000 is in my top 5. Lauryn Hill's in my top 5. Nas is in my top 5. I got to put Jay in my top 5 because he's influenced me a lot in terms of I've gotten a lot of my economic advice from Jay. Seriously, because I told you I didn't grow up in one of those families that talks to me about economics.
Right.
You know what I mean? I had to learn it through hip hop.
Right.
You know, and I didn't go to school to learn any of that.
Yeah.
You know, I got into the business as a teenager. So a lot of what I know about economics is from Jay-Z. I know I'm missing somebody very important. I'm gonna say Black Thought. Black Thought.
Who continues even every year as he puts out more incredible stuff.
He does.
It's underrated. Right.
I mean, people say that, but those who know, they know.
They know.
Right. They have been celebrating him since day one, those who know.
And he made a choice that he wanted to be part of a collective, right? Knowing that he might give up, you know, some solo shine, if you will, you know, because of that.
But he inspires so many to go back to live music.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. We all make sacrifices. Artists in general, we're sacrificial lambs in one way or another. Yeah. You know, he made the sacrifice, I guess if you want to call it sacrifice, to be within a band. He's the reason that our band, that me and my cousin started a band when we were in high school. You know, because not that they were the first ones to ever have a band. I think Tribe Called Quest had a band before them, but that really wasn't our era. So the Roots was like the first group that I knew of hip hop who had a band and a really, really, really good band.
Right.
And I mean a band meaning that like not just musicians who played behind them sometime and swapped out here and there, but people who you knew, they had personalities and faces and names, and we knew their names, and we knew you know, the role that they play within a band, that made us want to have a band. Like, I don't even perform without a band now.
We've been joined today by Maimouna Youssef, a.k.a. Mumu Fresh. Thank you very much for taking some time to spend with us today.
I appreciate it.
Black lights and booze burn when I record for Watts. And every black like Troy Davis who never had a fair shot. All black, everything black. Culture over everything, y'all. We taking it back. Black.